Indian Cave is a beautiful state park in the southeast corner of Nebraska. It has excellent camping options, miles of trails, and a few touristy attractions. These videos are intended to give you an overview of the trails so you know what to expect before hiking them yourself. Indian Cave State Park is known for a large sandstone cave, which unfortunately was closed during my visit. Even with that regrettable news, I was enthusiastic about discovering a new trail and about what surprises it held. It didn't take much time down Trail 5 to dampen my spirits. In researching the trip, I used a park map provided by the park website and chose two of the longer trails to do, Trails 5 and Trail 8. I'll start the trip report with Trail 5. I've indicated that with the blue path. It was very disappointing, but I conclude the video with my much more pleasant experience on Trail 8, indicated by the pink path. I started Trail 5 on the western trailhead and entered the forest to a chorus of songbirds. The trail was well maintained on the western side, and my anticipation grew. Unfortunately, any visions I was having of a beautiful trail were soon dashed. As I continued along the trail, the pretty edges of the trail, covered in wildflowers and various grasses, were slowly replaced by walls of mud. They started out about a foot high, but as the miles ticked by, they grew and grew, and at one point they were over 6 feet high. I felt like a caterpillar in a ditch. Looking at dirt walls was not my idea of beauty. The trail contained large thorns, some as big as my hand. The trail floor was a thick layer of sludge that coated the bottom of my trail runners in several inches of muck. My feet grew heavier and heavier as the mud caked on my shoes. As I followed the earthen abyss, I was confronted with multiple considerable inclines. I love a challenging hill, but the thick mud made every step precarious, and I was making much slower progress than expected. With shoes covered in muck, every step forward was followed by a 6-inch slide backward. I nearly face-planted multiple times. My biggest frustration, though, was navigation. This should be a pretty straightforward hike, although the map leaves a little to be desired. 3 other trails crisscross Trail 5, and there are connectors in several places. The map only indicates the trail in a single location, so knowing exactly which way it goes and where it ends is difficult. I thought when I got to the trail I would just follow the blazes, but there aren't any blazes. The trail provides sporadic signage, however, it was incorrect in several spots. There is no loop on Trail 5, yet this sign indicates the trail could go in 3 directions. This sign shows the trail is straight ahead, but straight ahead there is nothing but forest. This sign shows no direction other than the way I came. To be fair, it really isn't a concern that someone would get lost. All the trails lead back to a parking lot. But I set out to do Trail 5, and it was very difficult to be sure that I was actually doing the whole thing. Looking back at my trip on Strava, I can tell that I did, but I was certainly unsure that day. The trail was well maintained until about 4 miles in. At that point, for about a mile to a mile and a half, the trail had several downfalls that had to be crawled through, and weeds were encroaching upon it. It was obvious this section was not as well maintained as the first section. As I trudged down the final incline, the trees opened up to reveal a gorgeous lake. The first half of my trip was over. I seriously considered calling it a day, but I wanted to get my mileage in, so I crossed the road to give Trail 8 a shot, and I'm glad I did. Again. Trail 8 starts with a quarter-mile climb of about 250 feet with several false summits. but at least it wasn't covered with mud and the footing was sure, so I enjoyed the challenge. And it paid off with beautiful overlooks of the Missouri River. Trail 8, in contrast to Trail 5, was beautiful. It had grassy trail edges and beautiful little purple flowers, interesting ferns, and views of the Missouri River at various elevations. One of the unique features of Indian Cave State Park were Adirondack shelters, which were peppered throughout the trails. They each had benches and fire rings and were perfect for a quick break out of the sun or for a protected overnight camp. I stopped to eat lunch at one of them. Overall, I'm glad I came to visit. The park itself is beautiful and well maintained. The trails north of the main road were enjoyable. I actually did parts of two other trails while I was there, but I wouldn't recommend trails south of the main road. I ended my day with a grilled filet sandwich and watermelon before camping for the night. Reflecting back on my trip, I believe sometimes you have to see the warts to appreciate the beauty of other places. I'll be back to the state park once the Indian Cave Trail is open.